Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Thank you. We're going to start in just a minute. Great. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:30. This is the regular City Council meeting. I am going to call this meeting to order. First up, can I please have a motion from council to appoint Annette Boucher as our acting city clerk this evening?
Your Honor, so moved.
Councilor Corbett, thank you. Is there a second? Councilwoman Clark, thank you. Is there any discussion? All right. Yes, acting clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Councilman Bliss,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Corbett,
Yes.
Councilman Gettings, Councilor Rohrbach,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Soltis,
Yes.
and Mayor Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Acting clerk, can you please take a roll call?
I'm sorry,
Sir, can you do the roll call?
again?
No, that was the vote to appoint you to acting
Oh.
clerk.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Councilwoman Clark,
Here remotely in Madison Heights, Oakland County, Michigan.
Councilman Corbett,
Here in Madison Heights, Oakland County, present.
Councilman Gettings, Councilor Rohrbach,
Here, remote, Oakland County, Michigan, Madison Heights.
Mayor Pro Tem Soltis,
Here, remote, Madison Heights, Oakland County.
Councilman Bliss,
I'm here remotely in Madison Heights, Oakland County.
and Mayor Grafstein.
I am here in council chambers. Councilwoman Clark, thank you for starting us off with the remote. Can I please have a motion to excuse Councilman Gettings? He did give notice.
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Clark,
I'll make a motion to excuse Councilman Gettings.
thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I'll support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Councilman Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Councilman Gettings has been excused. The invocation this evening will be by Councilman Corbett, and then I would ask him to please also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Corbett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. Infinite wisdom, we thank you for having given us the opportunity to meet together here tonight. And we ask most humbly for a blessing on our gathering. Brighten our eyes with greater understanding, enrich our hearts with compassion and courage, and receive again our gratitude for this opportunity of fellowship. Amen.
Everyone could stand if you are able. The Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Corbett.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. First up, we have the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions this evening?
Your
Your
Honor,
Honor,
Councilman Corbett?
Your Honor, I move to create a D3, which will be the approval of the proposed contract with the MEU union representing employees within the city.
Great. Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Councilwoman Clark. The motion has been made and seconded to add D3 to the agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote? Clerk, you need to unmute.
Thank you. Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Are there any other additions or deletions for the agenda?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Clark?
the HREC committee had voted to ask for council approval to have a Juneteenth event this year on June 19th at our last meeting, but it didn't get transcribed in time to add it to the agenda. So I'd like to ask to add that to the agenda tonight.
Okay, would that be report, D4 report? Is that where you?
Yes, fine.
D4? Okay, is there support?
Your Honor,
Council Rohrbach?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded for item D4. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Soltis,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. It is on the agenda. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move to public hearings. First up, we have A1 special approval 32415 John R., the outdoor seating with alcohol beverage service. City Manager Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, special approval is being requested by 168 Crab and Karaoke located at 32415 John R. Road to allow permanent outdoor seating that serves alcohol or has the entertainment under section 10.3194. This property is located on the southwest corner of John R. Road and West Mandalena Avenue and is currently an indoor bar and restaurant and karaoke. The applicant is proposing an outdoor seating area with 50 seats in front of the building within the existing sidewalk. The plans indicate a 5-foot clear space for pedestrian access. No changes are proposed to the site or the building exterior. The outdoor seating area includes a canopy, and the hours of operation have been submitted as Monday through Sunday from 11 to 2 a.m. The Site Plan Review Committee has reviewed the application and recommended approval subject to the City Council's special approval. You're muted.
It was my turn to be muted. Thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Councilman
Sherman,
Bliss?
City Attorney.
Oh, City Attorney.
Before you ask for the wish of council, you need to open the public hearing on this item.
Oh, because it's a special approval. Thank you, City Attorney Sherman. All right, the meeting is now open specifically to discuss the special approval for 32415 John R. If anyone in the public wants to comment on this, please indicate. All right, I am seeing.
I don't see anyone.
I don't see anyone. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on the special approval and now ask for the wish of council.
Your Honor.
Bliss.
I move that we grant special approval request 21-1, which is the outdoor seating with alcoholic beverage service at 32415 John R.
Great, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I'll support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your
Your
Honor.
Honor.
Councilwoman Clark?
Thanks. So just a quick question. Is this to also include like karaoke? Will there be karaoke sang outside, or these are just seating for drinks and food?
Mrs. Marsh?
I'll have to defer to the planner. I did not see plans for actual karaoke outside, just food and
Just food.
beverage, but if Giles or Sri knows something different.
Sri?
Good evening. Sri, the plans have notes saying that there will be no outside entertainment or speakers of any sort. So it's just for outdoor seating for restaurant, food and service.
Thank you very much.
So karaoke inside, but outside it's just a regular seating. Okay, thank you. Any other questions,
Your Honor.
comments? Yes, Councilman Bliss.
Yeah, I think this is excellent. This area does not have any, residential around it. It's a perfect location for this type of an outdoor restaurant. Effectively, this expansion that they're looking to do. I'm not only very supportive of it. I believe that there's also the ability for them to have outdoor entertainment. And so, I know that that's not before council today, but there's no residential in the area. Obviously, there has to be some noise concern, depending on the decibel level. But this is the type of thing that we've discussed before, both at council and at the planning commission, where we want to encourage these types of outdoor seating with restaurants, and having some limited entertainment in the form of some speakers outside. I don't think is a terrible idea, but I guess in the case of this specific instance, I know it's not included as of now, but I would definitely encourage that, and I'd love to see more of these coming to us in the future.
Thank you, Councilman Bliss. Is there any other discussion, comments from council?
Your Honor, a question, actually a question for Mr. Bliss, who's the tenured member of the Planning Commission with us tonight. I was wondering if in the past, although this would not have been specifically discussed at Planning Commission, I wonder if in the past what the Planning Commission may have felt or talked about in terms of public safety. Were there any concerns with the service of alcohol outside, presumably closer to streets and so on? Is any discussion on that? Any concerns, or they felt that the individual bar owners and restaurants could mitigate any issues?
Your Honor?
Please answer. Yes.
Yeah. We didn't discuss that specifically. I think though the track record of our existing outdoor dining areas in the city and some of the limited amounts of police calls and problems that we've had with those, I think would definitely lend itself to that. But I'd be happy to have our planner Sri jump in there. It's something that we could absolutely discuss at a future planning committee meeting and dig into the depths of that issue.
Sri, please, if there's anything you want to add.
We briefly discussed a potential text amendment regarding outdoor seating a 2 meetings ago, in an attempt to, council passed the resolution for outdoor seating on a temporary basis. So we were discussing if we were going to make it a proper zoning ordinance amendment, what are the concerns or comments? And the general idea I remember from the meeting was that the Planning Commission was encouraging towards having outside entertainment as long as it doesn't impact the residential area around or create any nuisance levels.
Okay. Yes,
Your
I
Honor.
think this was going to be a look and see how it works. Councilman Corbett?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's fine. I was mostly looking to expand the record on it here at this point, but also to acknowledge there has been that by a case-by-case basis, if there are problems, they can be dealt with. I'm thinking of one place that insisted on disregarding noise abatement and so on, and eventually they it became a police matter. But I think by and large most of the bar owners and restaurateurs that have been given this chance have done very well and been very responsible, and I hope it's been profitable for them. So I'm good with that. I mean, it's something we can always come back and visit at a later date if it's necessary, but I think everybody's done pretty good on it. And thank you very much, Mark.
Great. Thank you. Any other, Mr. Sherman?
Your Honor, clarification on the motion. So I'm directing this to Councilman Bliss and Councilwoman Clark. Does the maker of the motion and support intend to include the conditions of the special approval as recommended by staff?
Mr. Bliss?
Yes, Your Honor, I'll include that.
Yes.
Clark? All right, thank you. There any other comments or any discussion among council? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote? You're on mute.
Bliss,
Yes.
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, items on agenda of interest to parties in the audience. We have meeting open to the public. This is the opportunity for members of our public to speak to us. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Give your name, address, anything that identifies you in the city. If you want to raise your hand or make some motion so that we know. I see Mary Bush. So Mary Bush, you're up first. Please go ahead. You are on mute. You just disappeared.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. To start with, I want to thank the city people, Melissa Marsh, for getting the Kaboom grant for developing a play area around the library. I think that's absolutely outstanding and appreciated. I have a little concern about the denial of the $1,000 to Haven for the CDBG grant. During the times of COVID, people are stuck in their house and abusive behavior is on the rise for both children and spouses. And Haven is the only domestic violence shelter for Oakland County. And had we known that $3,500 was what was needed, we might have actually recommended the whole $3,500. So I'm hoping that City Council reconsiders the decision to not give Haven any money, but rather to give them the $3,500 rather than $106,000 to the code enforcement officer, or even $3,500 to the senior lawn care, senior and disabled lawn care. It's an issue of what you value. Seniors having mowed lawns or women and children having a protective environment in a case of abuse. So please reconsider that. I also have a concern about the Zoning Board of Appeals. Right now, 3 members of the Madison District Public Schools, Ms. Holder, Thompson, and Ott, they all sit on the Madison District Public School Board and are also a body of influence on the zoning board. So I would highly recommend that for people to serve on city advisory councils, that they not hold positions of authority on any other entity in the city. And lastly, I just am really looking forward to the summer fun between the trail tunes and Juneteenth celebration and learning about that part of our history and just having a fun time with my community and my neighbors. I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you again, Mary Bush, 1117 East Hudson. Sorry, I didn't say that at the beginning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Bush. All right. Is there anyone else, public comment? Anyone else who wants to say anything?
Kevin Wright has his hand up.
Evan, all right, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I'll make my comment brief. We're actually headed home from the UP, so we're pulled off at a rest stop off of I-75 right now. So that's why it might look a little dark in the car, in the van. But I just wanted to, I know that the Juneteenth celebration has been added to tonight's agenda. And I'd just like to urge City Council to fully support and approve this important event, this milestone event in our city. I think it's something that's very positive. It's an underlooked holiday, national holiday, who I think we can really be proud to have our first celebration this year. So I'll just urge the City Council to give its full support tonight. Thank you. It's 745 Canterbury is my address.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
please drive safe. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Bondadarian, you're up.
Hello, my name is Vonder Darian. I live at 655 West Girard Avenue. And I saw recently the news release about the Kaboom grant that's going to be used to develop play structures and community spaces around the library. And something that I had brought up a number of years ago at council or possibly to councilors individually is exploring ways to make the crosswalk on 13 Mile Road more pedestrian friendly. I live in the subdivision that's south of 13 Mile west of John R. And generally speaking, I don't take my kids, even in the summertime when it's nice out. we don't walk across the street to visit the Civic Center because that crosswalk, it's not pedestrian friendly. It's a flashing yellow light. The cars oftentimes don't recognize that there's pedestrian traffic there. It's really not great. And I know that there are other cities that have found ways. There's a lot of options to explore. Potentially, if you want to go super extreme, you can talk about narrowing the street down to 2 lanes if you want to make it more pedestrian friendly. But even extending the size of the crosswalk and making the crosswalk strips more visible and more significant. A lot of different ways, because as we have gone and as there's more events that are happening in the municipal center and there's more development happening to make that a more attractive place for people with kids to want to go and explore and spend time. We had the sledding hill with the free sled bin this winter. There's been a lot of effort put into making the Civic Center more community friendly. But as long as you have that, as long as you have people have to, risk their lives to get across 13 Mile, it's going to be a little bit awkward and hard to really get people to feel like they're connected to that. So I'd just like to ask council to really think about exploring some ideas there. I'm by no means an experienced city planner, but I know that there's been a lot of work done on that in other places. And I'd like to ask council to kind of take a look at that. Thanks again.
A quick question. Are you talking about 13 and John R, or you're talking about the other one by the high school?
The one, yeah, the crosswalk that goes.
Okay.
That one right there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm gonna put that in my notes. Okay, I see Chelsea Zerwick, I see Sean Force, and I see Simone Moy. So the 3 of you are next, starting with Chelsea. Chelsea, if you want to unmute.
Hello and good evening. My name is Chelsea and I am a first response court advocate from Haven. I want to begin by thanking Madison Heights for all of the help and support that you've given Haven in the past. As you know, Haven is an agency that works with survivors of intimate partner violence and sexual assault. We ask that you continue that support again this year. This past year, due to COVID, we have not only seen an increase of numbers for all of our services, but we've also noticed the intensity of incidents getting greater. Most people know we provide emergency shelter to those fleeing dangerous and deadly situations, but we do so much more to help survivors heal throughout individual and group counseling, court advocacy, PPO assistance, and safe, compassionate forensic exams. Our crisis and support line offers crisis intervention, resources, and support for concerned individuals and survivors 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Haven is especially proud of our growth in our community resource program. This program links survivors back to their communities with assistance in housing, jobs, and finances. To end the cycle of violence, we must step up for our survivors, set up our survivors for success. And your support will help us do just that. However, we understand, like us, that you have limited resources and unlimited needs in your community. If you are unable to financially support us, we would like you to spread the word about Haven to the people in your life. Again, thank you so much for your support. And if you have any other questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate that. All right, next I'm going to hear from Sean Force, and then Simone Moy is next. Sean, if you want to unmute.
Hello, council members and mayor and neighbors. My name is Sean Force. I live here in Madison Heights with my wife. I'm part of the Human Relations and Equity Commission. I'm here today because, one, I would like to advocate for the June 19th celebration. I think it's been a rough couple years going on a couple years for everyone in the community. I think a celebration would be an amazing way to spend a weekend this summer. And I think that it's important that we do know our history so that we can come to terms with what that is. The other thing I wanted to say was to ask the council to please consider the Human Relations and Equity Commission is made up of people from various marginalized communities. So when we ask for something, we're asking for something for ourselves and for our families, right? A few weeks ago, before the inauguration, we asked for support from the mayor and Chief Haynes for a community briefing about how to support our neighbors who are marginalized and who might be more at risk. Because one of the things that we saw at the Capitol was a lot of white supremacy. Not everyone involved with that was a white supremacist, but that was definitely a theme. So those of us at risk from that kind of thinking were afraid. So we asked for support. I have no idea if that request made it to Chief Haynes, but we were shut down, which was unpleasant to be pushed aside and to have our concerns dismissed. So when I talk to people about diversity and inclusion, one of the things that I try to emphasize is that we move through this world differently, right? I move through the world differently than a lot of you do as a queer woman. Quinn Wright is a Black man, moves through the world differently than I do. And so we have different experiences, and listening to each other when we talk about those experiences is how we connect and how we deal with the issues of white supremacy and division that we experience. So I would just like to ask Council and Mayor Grafstein to remember that when we ask you for help, it's personal. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Simone Moy, you are next, please. And Ms. Horst, thank you for sharing that with us today.
Good evening. My name is Simone Moy, and I live at 31346 Cedar Ridge Lane. I've been a resident of Madison Heights for over 10 years now, recently on the Human Relations and Equity Commission, and along with Kevin Wright is co-leading the Cultural Events Subcommittee. So I first would like to say that it is exciting to see all the events and things that the city is doing over the last year or so. But also I am hoping that we get the support of the city and the council for to move forward with the Juneteenth celebration this summer. I think that not only is it something that's needed as a community building event, that could also be a very educational event to bring our community closer. Madison Heights has been doing a lot of things in this last year that lives up to the name of City of Progress. And I think this would be one milestone that I hope the city will support.
Great. Thank you. I've got Quinn Wright, and then I've got Cheryl Murray. Quinn, if you want to go ahead, you're up.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Quinn Wright. I live in 906 Parliament Avenue here in Madison Heights. I serve as the chairperson for the HRAC, and just like my fellow commissioners on that board, I just wanted to first stress and ask the board to please support this effort to put on this event. I understand that sometimes there might be concerns about costs and about manpower and things like that, but this board, the HRC, what we're merely asking is just support to put it on. I think that members of our committee are doing superb work in trying to make sure that it is as low of a burden on the city as possible, if a burden at all. But we just want to do something which this committee was asked to do, which was speak to the marginalized people in this community, to the queer folk and the marginalized minorities in the community who don't always get to hear their voice seen. And I just want to express how significant of a step it will be for Madison Heights to successfully have a Juneteenth event, regardless of the size, but just to show that we are being inclusive and equitable. And a lot of times we focus on the word of diversity, which means that there's a large group of different people, but this is meant to be inclusive and not just for the people who are marginalized, but for everyone to share in American history and not just in Black history, but as a way of galvanizing. So if you would, I would encourage you all to support this event going forward. I think the folks on HRC are working incredibly hard and incredibly fast to get this done. So I'd appreciate that support. And I finally just want to congratulate and acknowledge the work the city has done and Melissa has done with getting the Kaboom grant and all of the work that's being done behind the scenes to make things happen in the city. It's a tremendous effort. And, you know, as a father and as a community member and as a property owner, it's nice to see things like that happen, because those type of things are what bring people to our city. When I was at Rosie's Park over the weekend, it was amazing to see how many people that I talked to weren't from the city of Madison Heights. And that is nothing but good for our city, good for our community, and good for us. So please support the Juneteenth celebration I hope that cost is not something that comes up in this, because we're not asking the city to pay for anything. And so I just ask you to support it, and that'll be my time. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Cheryl Murray, you are up.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. There's actually two things I wanted to touch base on. One of the things is the Juneteenth. That is something that I'm very passionate about as well. I think that is something that the community and certainly the city council should support. I myself, I had learned about Juneteenth from an episode of the show Blackish, probably 3 years ago or so. And, you know, unless there's a way for people in the community to, you know, be educated about some of the history of some of our marginalized populations, there's especially the cities need to be a part of that. So that is one of the items. The other thing is regarding Haven. I would like to express that I would like to see the city also support Haven. Although Haven also does a lot for domestic violence and things of that sort. There was an experience that someone in my family, a minor, was raped. And a couple of years ago, I ended up taking her to Beaumont Hospital. I don't know if other people are aware of this, but I did not know that Beaumont is not the place that handles things like rape and rape kits and things of that sort. So I ended up at very late, had to, you know, take her out to Pontiac, to Haven, to have the counseling, the rape kit, and all of that done. The police were lovely. They came out and did a report about it at the hospital, but I had to take her to Pontiac. That is the only place in Oakland County that does this kind of thing, because the hospitals no longer do that. So I hope this kind of lets you know that, you know, there's a lot of services that they provide, and even to minors, kids, and the way that they treated her with compassion and consideration, followed up with her, was amazing. So this is a particular issue that is close to home for my family. So I encourage you to support, reconsider and support Haven. Thank you. Oh, Cheryl Murray, 1715 Elliott. Thank you.
Thank you for thank you for sharing that story. I'm sorry no child should have to go through that. Are there any other comments, public? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments and continue on. Next up is communications. The environmental, C1 Environmental Citizens Committee has a request to vacate seat. City Manager Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, at the December 2020 meeting, the Environmental Citizens Committee voted to recommend removing Steve Check, Aaron Work, and Devon Nagangas from the board due to lack of attendance. Mr. Check and Mr. Work's terms are now expired and vacated. Mrs. Nagangas has not attended any meetings since being appointed. Her term expires on February the 28th of 2022. The board is requesting that City Council confirm the vacating of this seat on the Environmental Citizens Committee for a regular term with an expiration of February the 28th, 2022. Should council choose to vacate this position, the open term is already reflected on the boards and commissions vacancy list that'll be considered on an upcoming agenda item.
Thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach?
I move that council confirms the vacating of Mrs. Nagangas Environmental Citizens Committee seat for a regular term with an expiration date of February 28th, 2022.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor, support.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, item D1, reports, Community and Economic Development Supervisor, the program year 2021 Community Development Block Grant Application. Mrs. Marsh, report.
Yes, each year the CDBG committee provides the recommendation to City Council on the activities and funding levels of the CDBG supported programs for the city for the coming year. Due to the personnel changes at Oakland County and the lack of communication from HUD, the normal process for approval has been significantly truncated. The CDBG committee meeting, typically held in November, was pushed to February 1st, with response required no later than March the 5th. The CDBG committee recommended activities for funding for the program year for 2021 for $105,775 for code enforcement, public services, which is lawn care, for $35,589, and a contribution to Haven for $1,000 for a total of the $142,364. The CDBG committee felt that because the new code enforcement officer has been onboarded at an entry level for the position, there are savings from the last year code enforcement cost. They proposed using this anticipated savings towards supporting Haven and their comprehensive services in domestic abuse and sexual assault areas. Following up on this recommendation, the CED staff learned that Oakland County had a minimum program allocation of $3,500. Therefore, the allocation to Haven needs to be $3,500 and not $1,000 as recommended. Therefore, staff and I recommend the approval of the CDBG activities for the funding program year 2021 of the CDBG application without this Haven allocation. This would result in the allocation of code enforcement at $106,775, the public services lawn care at $35,589. However, once staff receives the information about the actual funding amounts from HUD, we are going to re-examine this allocation and we'll be meeting again with the CDBG review committee to make a recommendation back to council. The city council concurs. The motion would be to approve the program year 2021 community development block grant allocation for code enforcement of $106,775 and public services lawn care at $35,589, allowing the city to meet the March 5th deadline.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Rohrbach,
I move that we approve the program year 2021 community development block grant allocation for code enforcement at $106,775 and public services lawn care $35,589, allowing the city to meet the March 5th deadline.
great. Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Corbett,
I'll support.
thank you. Is there discussion?
Your Honor.
Corbett,
Before I go doing this, I would like to maybe consult with the city manager if I could. I understand the logic. I understand I've been doing this long enough. I get the bureaucratic logic of all this, but the fact of the matter is Haven ought to be a priority. It's been special to me. I just say in my little role as a city council member for over 20 years, I remember having a very emotional conversation years ago with some of our volunteers, and we had the word just escaped me, but the volunteers who would work on go along with the police to crime scenes, the victims advocates, and they told me, and they were really the ones who told me about Haven. 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning, a woman and her children need to leave a home now. It was Haven whose doors were open. They may have been a little bit of a drive, but they were a secure, safe place to go. So I'm going to move to put them back in. I'm willing to discuss where it comes from, but I think it needs to be a priority. I think it needs to say something about us as a community, and that's where I'm at. So before I make a motion, Ms. Marsh, do you have a preference where I move the funds?
I mean, I don't think so. I'll defer to Giles, but I think you can actually take it from either place because we haven't gotten the complete allocation from HUD yet. And we're going to be coming back to the CDBG review committee with a different proposal. Once Giles figures out like what the allocation is and how our past monies can be spent. But Giles, do you have anything to add to that?
If it's the wish of council to include a contribution to Haven, then it would be my recommendation that you take from the code enforcement portion of the allocation as you see it. There probably will be some room for from the code enforcement just because we've had change in personnel that has reduced some cost. This year's just been particularly challenging because normally you have 14 weeks to research the needs of the community, provide public hearing notice. That was all truncated to 5 weeks, and we still don't have a good idea of what's happening with HUD. And also at the Oakland County level, the lady that's been in charge of CDBG for quite some time retired in November when we would have had our informational meetings. So if you're going to make any inclusions to include Haven contributions, I would take it from code enforcement.
Okay, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So that would actually make the motion the following. The motion would be to approve the program year 2021 community development block grant allocation for code enforcement for $103,275 and public services lawn care for $35,589 and allocation to Haven for $3,500, allowing the city to meet the March 5th deadline.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Marsh. Councilor Rohrbach, do you want to?
I still have the floor, ma'am.
Sorry, Mr. Corbett.
That's okay. That's okay. And that would be my substitute motion to incorporate the language of Ms. Marsh, approving the budget as a whole, but transferring $3,500 to Haven from the code enforcement budget. That's
so Mr. Corbett, you are making a substitute motion then?
Yes, I thought about,
okay.
Yeah, I thought about, that's what I'm doing. It's a substitute.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Is there support for the substitute motion? Councilor Rohrbach?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
I
thank
support.
you. Thank you. All right, so we now have a substitute motion, which is, I'm going to make sure I get these numbers right, 103,275, and then the 35,589, and then the full 3,500 to Haven. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Clark.
So this feels like a no-brainer to me. I know from some of the police reporting that I've received about crimes in the area that assault is their #1 crime. And I'm willing to bet, and I haven't looked at the demographics, and I know Chief Haynes can speak to it, but the major demographic of that is women. So not only that, but we have a special task force to address human trafficking in the area. So it seems like a no-brainer to me that we would fund an organization that can help support and close those disparity gaps for those most marginalized here in our city. And it's $3,500 seems like a real good deal on that resource. So I'm going to vote yes for it because it makes sense. I'd love to give them more money if I could.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Your Honor?
Mayor Pro Tem Soltis?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because I thought when I first got on council 7 years ago, we were always told that we couldn't give money out to other nonprofits because then, there's so many out there just in need, just like everyone else. And so that's what kind of what we went by. So there's, I'm all for Haven, but there's other nonprofits that certainly need help as well. Do we give to Care House for the children? That to me is like right up there with Haven. So how do we prioritize which one we give to? And that was always the concern years ago. And so that's my concern now. Do they alternate years? How do we give to both? you know, that type of question. So the city manager kind of enlightened us a little bit about, you know, the history and the possibility of decisions in the future.
City Manager Marshall, can you address that, please?
I'll defer to Larry Sherman as well, but taxpayer dollars, so there is a difference between tax dollars and CDBG funds. Tax dollars cannot be donated to nonprofits. That is not an appropriate use of tax funds. CDBG is not tax dollars, it's federal grant for community development block, and it does have different rules related to it. It can't be donated just to any nonprofit. There are specific nonprofits, and it has to be related to certain areas of the community. So you couldn't donate this money to just any nonprofit. But Larry, do you have something to add to that?
What you may interrupt real quick. Care House, would that be one of the, would that fall into that designation?
I don't think so. I would have to research that.
You'd have to research it?
I don't think that it does, but I would have to
For what
double check
reason
that.
though?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do not think so. And typically that is not a use of CDBG-like funds.
Mr. Sherman, please.
What I'd like to add to the discussion for the benefit of council and for the public is that when you're making a donation, or what's on the floor, a donation to Haven, it's justified by virtue of the fact that there is a benefit to the community as a whole for this type of service. When we have cases in court where we're prosecuting and there's victims of domestic assault, Haven representatives are right next to the victims, and we deal with them together. So the benefit is arguably to the community as a whole by having this resource.
Your Honor?
Thank you. Mr. Soltis?
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. What I'm saying is what you just described could be the same thing for Care House. I'm sure you have you lawyers in, you know, stand up in front of the judge with children that have been abused and neglected and so forth. So that's what I'm saying. It's comparable in nature for a community grant. And that's all I'm asking is, you know, how do we decide which one actually gets it?
Your
Thank
Honor,
you. Mr. Sherman?
the only thing I would add further is that at a time when we had agreements with nonprofits, it had to be demonstrated in terms of council budgeting money to nonprofits. It had to be demonstrated that there was a benefit to the community as a whole in order to justify the budget allocation.
All right. Thank you.
Your Honor?
Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, I'm familiar with this aspect of the argument. I actually knew the answer to the question on this one, but to just extend it a little further, though, I remember clearly it was in the middle of the recession, the financial meltdown, and the aftermath when we had to start cutting stuff right and left. And this whole area, as Mr. Soltis points out, was one of them, the outsourcing. The having to cut the funding to Haven genuinely upset me beyond the fact that we eliminated a couple things that I personally had been working on. They would have been things that I had been very supportive of. But the reason I felt bad about Haven, I can draw a straight line from an impact on one of our residents or a family of our residents to the police department, to a safety, to the courtroom. It's clear, and you know, and the thing of it is 2 points, and I'll let go on it. We had been funding for $1,000. I even 3,500. I really don't know what that buys them. I mean, the cost, I can't imagine to house you know, dozens of people. And you know, I will tell you that even though we cut out the funding years ago, they still took our families. They still took generally the women and the children from our community without any question. There was no diminution in service, and they always picked up the phone. So I mean, we can look at this in the future, but you know, like I said, to me, it was a straight line in the benefit to our residents, to the spending of the money, to Haven, and there was no question about it. But All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other comments, council?
Your Honor.
Mr. Bliss?
Yeah, we have a long history with the CDBG grants, and I think Councilman Corbett alluded to a lot of it. But ultimately, what we've been doing since the recession is really leveraging that grant to be able to handle. I mean, outside of the lawn care for seniors, which is still funded fully in this proposal, but we've basically been leveraging it to help supplement some of our city funding with code enforcement. Among other things through the years. And, as we're, I mean, we are still worried and we're still nervous about the economy here, but I think we've shown through years of strong budgeting and due diligence. I mean, we're forecasting out a strategic plan of 3 years. We're going into those meetings. I think this is an appropriate time to have these discussions about, what changes we make to that model. If you look at the HUD site, the purpose of these grants is, and forgive me, I'll read it. It's to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities, principally for low and moderate income persons. And so I appreciate the discussion that the committee had that brought it here. I think, we need to start looking out of the box. And if, as was mentioned by staff earlier, we're going to have a savings this year in our code enforcement, the question should be, where should those dollars go? We've done that time and time again on council where we found savings, we allocated it to something in need that we otherwise couldn't have afforded. This could be a good opportunity for that. And so I appreciate the creativity, and I will support this motion, and I look forward to seeing the discussion that we're going to have back when the real numbers come in, because as staff noted, we're going to be having this discussion again in you said 5 or 6 weeks anyway. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the broader discussion and hopefully including this in the discussions on the strategic plan and those discussions that we're having over the next few weeks, really trying to understand what is our 3-year goal with these HUD funds that are coming into us. Because if we don't plan for it, then we're going to be shocked, and we're going to be making amendments and juggling this live in real time. What we should be having the discussion is, if there's extra money, here are the 3 places that we'd like it to go as a council, and just plan for that over time. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? All right. I would just like to say that I'm absolutely in favor of the 3,500. I'd like to give more, but I think we'll start with the 3,500, and we'll see. I very much appreciate the volunteers and the workers who have to deal with these horrors every day, and I'm definitely going to be voting yes on this. If there's no other discussion, then clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Corbett?
We're voting on the substitute.
Sorry, we're
motion,
voting on
correct?
the, yeah, maybe restate the motion, the substitute motion.
Oh, it's to adopt the CB. Are you asking me or the clerk? I'm sorry.
I can restate it.
Thank you.
The city
Probably
manager.
your job. It's above my pay grade.
A motion to approve program year 2021 community development block grant allocation for code enforcement at $103,275. Public services, which is lawn care, at $35,589, and a contribution to Haven for $3,500, allowing the city to meet the March 5th deadline.
Great. Thank you. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Corbett?
Yes.
Rohrbach?
Yes.
Soltis?
Yes.
Bliss?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes, of course.
And Grafstein.
So yes, it is passed. Thank you. Next up, D2 from the city manager, the fee schedule amendment, specifically the landlord licensing. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, at our last meeting, City Council approved amendments to the fee schedule. Inadvertently, the fee under landlord licensing was not updated. The fee proposal amendment reflects a pass-through charge from our inspection contractor. Therefore, staff recommends approving the fee amendment to the landlord licensing for lockout and second re-inspections for all failed inspections.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I move that we approve the fee amendment to the landlord licensing for lockout and second re-inspections of all failed inspections.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Corbett?
support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor?
Mr. Bliss?
Yeah, perhaps we've discussed this in the past, and it's just eluding me right now. But what is the fee, and what do we charge if we catch an unlicensed landlord in the city? Because that is oftentimes where most of our code enforcement issues would come from.
Mr. Marsh?
Ooh, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm going to have to look that up.
Giles, to you. Mr. Sherman?
No, we're going to have to look that up and get back to council.
Your Honor,
That's fair.
All right, Councilwoman Clark?
is there a public resource for all of the like legitimate landlords in the area? So that if someone's looking in the area for something, they can like access it, like they can their property information?
We do have landlord licensing through the building department which is online. And they also can call CED, assuming that the landlord has a license, which we do we started doing this probably in 2017. We do what's called a personal property tax exemption check. So we mail out a form to everybody who doesn't have, we call it a PRE on your home. And ideally, every one of those people should have a landlord license, because if it's not your principal residence, then you're renting it. So that's a pretty extensive process that we're going through right now to check to make sure that our landlord license are all up to date. We give the people the opportunity to come in and file, because a lot of times the people just don't understand they had to have one in Madison Heights, or more times than not, they're renting it to their grandson or their, granddaughter's friend, and they don't consider themselves true landlords, so they don't follow through with what they're supposed to do, even though they are landlords.
I just
So
gotta
it is
say,
a database
like,
at the city.
I just know that there's a lot of new people moving into the city every single day. And I've been in the city like 10 years now, and I'm on my second rental, and I never would have thought to look it up. I think it would be great to have a community resource, or maybe even you guys do some amazing posts on Facebook, but like maybe providing those resources to renters and potential renters, because people are coming to our Facebook groups in mass saying, hey, does anybody have anything for rent? So I think it's a good way to protect our residents too. I would never know to ask that had I not experienced my own catastrophe with it, like just getting into my business. So I think it would be good, now that we're bringing it up, to maybe create some citizen or resident facing materials that make it easy for them to be able to get that information.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Clark. So if I were in a position where, I guess Mrs. Marsh, this would be a question for you. If I was in a position where I wanted to rent and I went and I looked at the rental, I could just, would I be able to just contact the city and say, here's the address? Do they have a license? Or is it,
Yes.
is that, okay,
Yes, you can call the community
Okay.
development department.
okay. All right,
Is that-
thank you. That's,
Sorry, one more. Is it
Yeah.
something that's easy to put in a database and make searchable on the website? Or
Thought it
you
was
said there's
already
something there?
on. I would have to go check to make sure, but it's already in our building department database application. So
Okay.
it is already available.
Maybe a dedicated landing page to just help people find like that specific thing would be good.
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett?
I mean, obviously I work with the BSA site all the time. That's what it is. I forget what it stands for, but that's it. Every community is on. Some are fee, some you got to pay to access, some a subscription, and others are free. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you were to be curious enough, to want to know about your home. Are there any violations? Did they pull permits and so on? Once you get there, then you will naturally migrate to among the permits. It'll talk about a license, if there is one or not. I guess you got to know to ask the question first, which I suppose is your point. But once you've asked the question, it's fairly simple at that point. I mean, as simple as,
Yeah, I think,
I guess.
I think Councilwoman Clark, if you see people or if anyone asks you, as I just said, I'm in a situation where I want to rent something, they could either contact the city directly or they could go onto the BSA site and just put in the address and it would show up that you have a landlord license. I think it shows up the landlord license, the date, and they're good for 3 years. So as long as it's still active, it would still be active, I would think. If it's expired or they don't have one, then it wouldn't be, then they wouldn't have one. So it would be a matter of having to go and to get that.
Sure, I guess I just wouldn't want to discourage any residents from finding that information by making the task too difficult for them to go through or too obscure for them to think about. To have like maybe one spot that is just like a clear like call to action button, like new to renting, check this out, resources and database. Easy peasy. I'd be happy to help. I have a lot of graphic design and development experience.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other comments, questions, council? All right, seeing none, this is a vote to regarding the fee schedule amendment. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Robach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, D3 that was added onto the agenda this evening, the approval for the proposed MEU. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Not a formal report, but I will tell council that this follows the same agreement that we originally discussed with council for a 1-year extension. It's the same, along the same guidelines that we've approved for the supervisors union and the firefighters. Nothing different. And that's about it.
All right.
Unless you have questions.
All right. Do I have a motion from council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Corbett?
I move that the council approve the recommended agreement between the city of Madison Heights and the MEU organization approving a 1-year extension of an existing contract.
Great, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I'll support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Robach,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have D4, the other item that was added tonight regarding the Juneteenth event. Mrs. Marsh, I don't know if do you have a report or?
No.
Okay.
No, but the HREC has recommended it at their last meeting, but maybe Kim or Emily would like to elaborate as are the council reps.
I'm sure we
One of the
both
reps
have.
want to?
I'm sure we both have great things to say about it. So it was brought up in, I think, our very first HREC meeting that we have a Juneteenth event. And at the time that we unanimously voted that we have it, we weren't aware that we needed council's approval to do so. And we learned that along the way. And so that was a great learning experience. But we have unanimous support here on our board, and we've been gaining a lot of attention for it on Facebook. And it feels like a no-brainer to be able, we love celebrations here in Madison Heights, and to be able to celebrate the Black members of our community and their liberation, I think it speaks volumes to how we treat our neighbors here in the city. So I'd like council's approval for us to go forward and have this event, for which we've already raised money for. So if we could get council's approval, we could move forward on the planning and we could be ready in time to celebrate with our neighbors in June.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Rohrbach, anything you wanted to add as a report?
Councilwoman Clark said it very well. The the HREC is excited about it. I'm excited about it. I think it will be a phenomenal way to celebrate in our community. And I think it's important for us as a community to be the hosts of this as an important means of working together, reaching out, reconciliation, and the things that need to happen to heal our world, not just Madison Heights, but all of us. Things like this we need to embrace with full-throated approval.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your reports. So I guess what is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach.
I move that City Council approve what would it be? The HREC's Juneteenth event to be hosted in the city on June 19th of 2021.
All right, thank you. There's support.
Support.
Thank you, Councilwoman Clark. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from council members?
Your Honor.
Councilman Bliss.
Something that Councilwoman Clark said struck me. I'm not sure that you would need council approval. I mean, I'll happily vote in support of it, but the ECC runs programs without it having to go to council approval. I'm planning our second Trail Tunes event, and that didn't go through official council approval. It goes through the board. The board, then makes their recommendation to do it. And then the council rep and the staff liaison are supposed to work together unless there's a major issue on the staff side that council would have to override. I'm not sure something like this would ever, need to go to council. I mean, if the idea is, as Councilor Rohrbach said, to showcase our support as a council for this event, then 100%. But as Councilwoman Clark said in her, I guess the initial report statement, I don't believe that you had to bring it to council, just for future sake, unless of course there was an issue that staff had that would force that to go to council for a discussion and approval. But I support it. I think it's a great idea. I think anytime we can have an event that not just brings the community together, but does it in a way that will educate and inspire, I think it's a good thing for our community. So I support it, and hopefully in the future we won't have to have you take the time to have the board come out and speak in favor and have this discussion in council, and we could just move forward, and maybe you can create 3 more events in the same time period.
So I actually have a little bit to speak on that, because we thought the same thing, and we elected to host the very first event that we were going to do is to provide resources prior to the election to our neighbors on how they can reach each other and how they can reach emergency services and maybe people they can call if they feel like they're scared. And we were told that council needed to approve it, and that we had majority council support that we would not have that event, even though I don't believe I was ever spoke to on that, and I don't think Emily Rohrbach was either. So we were told that we would need council approval for this event, and it has been very stressful, because I remember being part of the arts board and hosting events like some of the greatest events, and so I did also find it odd that we were getting resistance on this issue. So thank you for that input, but maybe our attorney or the city manager has anything that they want to speak on that.
Mrs. Marsh, Mr. Sherman. Yes, please, Mr. Sherman.
Yes.
My recollection is of the original resolution that established the HREC did not expressly address whether the HREC could have events. That in and of itself does not mean that the HREC cannot have events. But by the same token, it also doesn't mean it just was not addressed. So there is no council approval requirement for the event in the resolution that was originally adopted establishing the HREC. So it'd be up to council. If you want to support it, you can, but the question is whether you need to or have to, and there's nothing in the resolution that provides that it requires council approval.
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Clark.
I would like to make sure that we get council approval for this, since I was told that the majority of council, minus Emily and I, were against having an event to begin with. So just for clarification that everybody's on board, I think I'd like to go ahead and take a vote on that.
All right.
Your
Thank you. Is
Honor.
it, Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, I don't want to get off on a tangent here. Is the motion is a motion to endorse and support? Am I correct? There's no money tied to it. There's no staff allocation. There's no, it's not a formal meeting of the group. It's an event. It's a celebration. It's a party.
Exactly.
Well, then, yeah, there is a difference here, but we can save that for an appropriate time. But yeah, this I'm more than happy to support. And I think it reflects some real good stuff in the community. So yeah, count me on board.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments from any other council members? All right. All right, I'm going to be supporting it. I think I heard about it. I don't know if I heard about it back with the first meeting, but I know I have been hearing about it along the way. And I've been working with Mrs. Marsh. We're looking to get sponsorship for different events in the city. And that one was on the list. There was no dollar value attached to it because we didn't know what it was going to cost. I don't know if you have that yet, but that was one that was on the list. So I will be voting yes on this as well. And seeing no other discussion, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right, up next we have F1, the feasibility study and design services for Fire Station 2. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes. So staff identified Fire Station 2 as a primary target for inclusion in this building and asset management plan for several different reasons, including but not limited to the fact that the building was not constructed in a time when female firefighters were anticipated. The building does not utilize existing space effectively, and there are ongoing major maintenance issues that have been put on hold for many years due to budget constraints, such as overhead door replacement, floor drainage system repairs, and flooring replacement in the apparatus room. A request for proposal was developed for a feasibility and design services study for Fire Station 2. After a mandatory pre-approval Zoom meeting with a virtual tour of the station, which 17 firms attended, the city received 7 proposals. All companies submitted quality proposals, and the majority had a clear understanding of the scope of work. A staff committee carefully reviewed each of the 7 proposals received, and after considerable discussion and deliberation, Partners in Architecture was unanimously recommended by the committee. Partners submitted the most economical proposal, providing the most value, and Partners is part of the state of Michigan's cooperative purchasing program through MyDeal. The proposal detailed approximately 334 hours of work for phase 1 for the Fire Station 2 project for a total cost of $23,600. This would include 3D imaging and printing. The number of hours in Partners' proposal was higher than all of the others, with the next closest proposal regarding hours coming in at 330 for a total cost of $51,564. In addition to the competitive pricing, Partners presented a considerable qualified municipal experience, provided examples of completed projects similar to size, scope, and budget allocation. Partners has also offered a 50% credit or $11,800 towards any phase 2 designs if the project moves beyond the feasibility stage, assuming they are approved as the architect for the final design service. No other firm presented a 50% discount for approval through phase 2 of this project. Partners easily is the most economical selection based on the rebate. The firm with the lowest cost presented in the proposals was for 100 to 120 hours of work for $12,000. While they were the lowest bidder, in staff's committee's unanimous opinion, the firm's proposal did not provide enough hours to meet the needs of the project and provide the best value for the city. Based upon this comprehensive proposal, significant municipal experience with similar projects, and the My Deal pricing submitted, as well as a potential for a 50% credit moving forward, staff and I recommend that City Council award the Fire Station 2 feasibility and design services to Partners in Architecture for the initial amount of $23,600 for phase 1, plus cost of any requested surveys up to $11,000 pending contract review and approval by the city attorney.
All right, thank you. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Councilman Bliss.
All right, I'll give this a go. I move that we award the Fire Station 2 feasibility and design study to, what is it? Partners in Architecture LLC at an amount of $23,600 for phase 1, plus the cost of any city requested surveys up to $11,000 pending contract review and approval by our city attorney.
Great, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Clark.
Nice job, Mr. Bliss. I support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Robach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have boards and commissions. City clerk has the boards and commissions renewals and appointments. So I was going to do this by doing the mayor's appointments first as just a set of appointments, if everyone is okay with that. Does that work? All right. So mayor's appointments are the DDA, Parks and Rec, and the Planning Commission. So for the DDA, for the Downtown Development Authority, I am looking for, I guess, for council to make the mayor's appointment of, to renew Leanna Renshaw for a term expiring February 22nd. She is on the board and she is willing to renew. And then for the 2 additional new spots, also expiring February 28th, 2025, I would like to appoint Elizabeth Blumenberg and Jennifer Zamarlik. And then for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, I would like to move Jason Theodorf, who is, I'm sorry, I'm probably not saying that right, who is the alternate, from the alternate spot into the regular spot that expires February 28th, 2023, and into the alternate spot, I'd like to move Vita Palazzola. That alternate spot is February 28th, 2023. And then for the Planning Commission, I would like to appoint Eric Gradinger to a term expiring August 31st, 2023. I believe that is all the mayor appointments. Can I have a motion from council to support, or what is the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Mr. Corbett?
I move the council confirm the appointments, the mayor's appointments as made.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Clark?
I'll support.
All right, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussions? I'm happy to address any of these if there's any discussion. All right, seeing none, I will just make the comment that I went through everybody's applications, and we had some really good people here, and I'll just do this backwards. Eric Gradinger is actually a planner, similar to Andy Wakeland, whose seat he will be filling. So I thought that was a really good addition to that role, or to that board. For Parks and Recs, Jason's already the alternate, so he's already working on that. And I know Vita is very active with the Arts Board, and so I wanted to move her up as well into the alternative role. As well, I wasn't putting her onto the DDA, but I do think that Liz Blumenberg and Jennifer Zamarlik are going to be good additions there. And Liz has actually taken, or she's looking at taking the citizen planner, which I think is, I did that a year or two ago, and I think it's a really good, she's going to be a really good fit there. Really helpful with all of that. So I think those are, and then Ms. Nini, who has been on forever, and she's been coming to the meetings, and she's very active with that. So that is my discussion. There's no other discussion, then clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Oh, yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have all the other boards and commissions. So normally what we do is the council representative for that board will be the one who, they're the most familiar with their board, so they would be the one who makes the suggestion. I'm just going to do this alphabetically, starting with the CDBG Review Committee. So what is the wish of council? Actually, I don't know that we have a council rep for that. So if anyone wants to just make that motion.
Your Honor.
Rohrbach.
I move that we appoint Syed Murtaza to the alternate term expiring of the CDBG board, expiring 8/31/21.
Yep, in August, that's right. All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Clark.
I'll support.
Great, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have the Elected Officials Compensation Commission. What is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett?
Is that, it just occurred to me, is that not a mayor's appointment?
Oh, is it?
Maybe it's not. I don't, but that flashed across my head. No?
I'll double check it.
Oh, I didn't.
Which one? What board are we looking at?
This is the elected officials compensation. I didn't have it on my list as a mayor's appointment.
Oh, I could be wrong. I'm sorry. It's just.
Elected officials, it is a mayor's appointment.
Okay, and is it 2 spots or is it 1 spot? How many?
I'm showing the roster is
7.
Four spots.
That's okay. That's all right. That's what I want to make sure I'm reading that correctly. Okay, then I would appreciate. I would like to appoint Margaret Marentet and Deborah Hauser for. I guess I'll put in Margaret for a term expiring August 31st, 2027, and Deborah for a term expiring August 31st, 2026. If anyone would like to make that motion.
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett.
I move to confirm the mayor's nomination of Margaret Marentet and Deborah Maliser for the terms mentioned on the elected board of elected officials. Yeah, that.
All right. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach.
I'll support.
Great, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have the Environmental Citizens Committee. Wish of council?
Your Honor.
Rohrbach.
All right, so I would move. So I think I need to have 2 different, or let's see if I get this right. I've written it all down. We'll get it right. So There is an alternate, Daniel Lee is a current alternate with a term expiring. I'd like to move him to a regular 3-year term ending 2/28/24. And then alternate Crystal Fox, I'd like to move her to a regular term expiring 2/28/24. And then I'd like to declare the alternate seat open and Nicole Fox to a regular term expiring 2/28/24.
Okay, and Mr. Sherman, if she wanted, could she also put the 2 alternate seats that are, or no, I guess forget it. Okay, all right. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Clark?
I'll support.
All right, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. And then Councilor Rohrbach, you had a second motion you wanted to make?
I do. I would like to appoint Elizabeth Blumenberg to an alternate term ending 2/28/24 and Kelly Ordning to an alternate term to, ending 2/28/23 in the ECC.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett?
Support.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from council?
I just, Your Honor, sorry, I would like to say that I'm sorry, I'm really thrilled about the new roster that we're going to have on the ECC. Daniel Lee and Crystal Fox have been doing a ton of work already, even as alternates. They show up at every meeting. They come to every planting. They've been planning and doing so much of the work that of this committee already, and I appreciate them so much. I am excited to see the addition of Elizabeth Blumenberg and Kelly Ordning to the alternate terms because they have excellent ideas. Particularly Elizabeth Blumenberg indicated that she's, she has great ideas and she also indicated she would like to be an alternate. So that's why she is in that seat. But Nicole Fox is being added to this board at this time. She has an extensive like vegetable gardening experience. She's worked in native gardens and Native American gardening practices and things like that. So I'm just really thrilled that she is going to be joining this board. Big things are on the agenda for the board in the next coming year. So I'm excited to have an enthusiastic group on board.
Great, thank you. All right, any other comments? All right, what is the wish of council? Clerk, can you take a roll call vote?
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, Historical Commission. What is the wish of council?
That would be me, Your Honor.
Corbett?
Yes, ma'am. I want to make one comment just in advance because it kind of sticks out there. A couple of the people have 50% by their attendance record. I would just point out to the council, I believe there's been 2 meetings in 2 years of that board. So if anybody missed 1 meeting in 2 years, they got a 50% attendance record. So it is so with that irony in mind, I would move, I'll do this separately. I'll move to appoint, Jennifer Ballantyne, Anna, forgive me, at this time of the day, my glasses start to fade. Jank Shaw, Lila Richards, Patricia Ross, and Cheryl Suter, reappoint them to the seats they currently hold on the historical board.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Councilor Rohrbach? All right, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to reappoint current members. Is there any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Corbett, Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. And then Mr. Corbett, did you want to do a second for new members?
Yeah, to the alternate seats, I would move to appoint Rebecca Chambliss and to the seat that expires in 2024, the alternate seat. And Kelly Ordning, I want to throw a third syllable in there. That's not Ordning, to the alternate, which expires in 2022.
Mayor,
I have that there's a regular seat and an alternate. Sorry, was that what you were going to say?
yes.
Okay. So
Yeah, or like I said, it's this time of the day with the glasses.
Okay.
So,
so you have a regular and an alternate seat.
yeah, I just keeping the pattern. Ms. Chambliss to the regular seat expiring at 24, and Ms. Ordning to the seat expiring, the alternate seat expiring in 22.
Okay, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I'll support.
Thank you. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have the Information Technology Advisory Committee. What's the wish of council?
Yes, Your Honor. That would be me.
Mr. Bliss, please.
I will make one motion tonight for the reappointment. I would move that we reappoint Scott Tuller to his seat with an expiration of 2/28/24.
All right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Councilor Rohrbach?
I'll support.
You're on a roll.
Thank you. Been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
Vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Bliss, did you want to make another motion or are you done?
Your Honor, I'm done with motions, but I would ask the
Okay.
clerk to reach out to the two candidates. Their applications were a little bit light on their technical expertise. And so if we could reach back out to them and get a little bit more detail, that would be very helpful.
All right. Thank you. Next up, the Library Advisory Board.
Back to me, ma'am.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes. I would move to appoint Jason Theodorov to the regular term expiring in 2023, and Ms. Chambliss to the alternate seat expiring in 2021.
All right, thank you. Their support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
hate to break up a streak, but I support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right, two left. Next up is the Tax Board of Review. What is the wish of council? So this one,
Yeah, we don't
have a
that's
council
not-
rep.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett.
Yeah, I would move to reappoint Stephen Hallcroft, Barbara Castle, Mark Kimball, and Elizabeth Shields to the current terms that they have on the Tax Board of Review. And we'll come back to the alternates or the other two. Well, actually, they're all regular seats. I forgot.
Yeah.
With your permission, I'll just move up Tyler Hemmingson to the seat expiring in regular seat in
They're all 2023.
Yeah, they're all 23 to Tyler, and then Marilyn Mail also to a regular seat expiring in 23.
Great, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Soltis?
support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
Orbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. And then we have the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Your Honor.
Corbett?
Yep, I'm the curtain
Corbett?
raiser tonight. Yeah, I'll make a couple comments after, but pardon me, I would move to reappoint Cindy Holder, Martha Kehoe, Mark Kimball, Gloria Thompson, and Deborah Ott to their respective turns on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
All right, and that's, just to clarify, that's 4 regular and 1 alternate.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Soltis?
support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor.
Mr.
Just
Corbett?
a couple of points. We did talk about this a couple of years ago. In fact, you brought it up.
I did.
About the outside activities of the individuals. And as was said then, and is true again today, you know, there is no prohibition. The only thing they could possibly do wrong is if they were to sit there and break into start riffing on school board business. Then there'd be an open meetings problem. The other thing I wanted to mention, and it's a similar comment to what I made about the Historical Commission. A couple of the members have 75%. Again, I think we've had, and somebody can check me on this, I think we've had 4 meetings in the last year to 14 months, and not much more than that. So again, if you miss 1 meeting a year, you're down, you know, you're degraded to 75%. But as far as, you know, as far as the members, I mean, they're fine people. They come prepared. They do good work. There's no reason they shouldn't be reappointed. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Councilwoman Clark?
Yeah, so I'd like if we could just have a little bit, so I'm new to council, I'm only just past my first year. So if we could talk about what that conflict might be, having them on the Zoning Board of Appeals and also having them as influence on the school board and both and so forth. If you guys could bring up some points of concern to sort of help me like understand why residents might be concerned about this, because after it was brought up this evening, I did like start to think like, what is the concern? So if you could just go into a little bit about why this might be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, actually, I can. Oh, Mr. Corbett, do you want to?
In either order. I mean, you can set it up, and then I'll. You know.
So I think it was 2 years ago when we had a very similar conversation, and I believe there were 2 members of the Madison School Board who were on this, and we were going to appoint a 3rd. And I said that I had a concern that it was going to basically be overweighted, and I had a concern that whether it was 3 members of Lamphir, or if we had 3 members of an arts board, or just having it heavily weighted to be a certain group. And that I was also concerned that Madison School Board, they would be putting themselves in conflict somehow. And so what we did was I think we tabled or we postponed the appointments until the next meeting so that I think it was our attorney confirmed with the school board that it was fine and there was no conflict. And so the appointments were made. And I think it's just a matter of if you have any one group on any one board that they could somehow, I know with planning commission, if you're on planning commission, you can't be on anything else. But if we somehow ended up in a situation where We had most of the Parks and Rec people were also the Arts Board people and also the HREC people and also the this and also the that. And just, it just becomes where so many decisions throughout the city would be made by this group. And that, I don't know, Mr. Corbett, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, but, well, 2 points. First of all, that was theoretical. I mean,
That was
there is no-
theoretical. Yeah.
The conflict notion.
Yeah,
I mean,
theoretical.
there is no the only time, well, I guess there would be a second case. There could be a conflict if the Madison School Board showed up and wanted a zoning waiver. I guess that might be an issue, but you can run into that all the time. But I will tell you, and I will represent the council in the several years I've served with many of these people. There has been, in fact, no conflict. There has not been I mean, you use the word conflict and it's just sort of stains the process. The fact of the matter, there is no problem. And I will say one other thing. It's sort of odd to hear. It's sort of odd the way this worked out because I will tell you as a fact, for 40 years, this board was slammed for being weighted to the north end of the community. And so it's funny that, it worked out this way, but the same people that serve on the PTO and the parents groups and coach football and Little League are not too surprisingly the same ones who show up at the school board and everything else. So no, there has not been a problem. Not one has shown itself, and they've served admirably and well.
Your
And
Honor.
by the way, the attorney's office concurred that there was, and the school district concurred.
Great. We did, Councilman Clark, just one thing I just want to sort of add to that. If the Madison district, because in this situation, it's 3 members of the board, were to go to the zoning board with something, I would think that they would need to recuse themselves from the vote. So, so that would really be the only time that I would see that there would be a potential conflict or some kind of situation.
So I still have a couple parts to this question.
Okay.
One, like the zoning board does make decisions that would impact the school district and vice versa, correct? That's a true, like can the zoning board make decisions that would affect anything happening, like sale of property or anything for
Your Honor,
for the school district?
Mr. Corbett?
I would no. I mean,
Mr. Corbett, how about this? How about you give an example? I'll give it, maybe I can give an example. My neighbor wanted to put up a fence and it was not zoned for a fence. So everyone who lived within a certain radius received something. There was a public hearing to give permission for this person to put up the fence. And so the zoning board had to approve the fence. So I guess if the school wanted to put up a fence or to do something that wasn't regular zoning and they needed to get approval, then the Madison School Board would be going to the zoning board. But
yeah, number one, I if I may, Your Honor, in off and on 30 years, I don't ever recall seeing that scenario, but
potential.
But yeah, but in that case, then and Mr. Sherman, anytime you want to cut me off here. But in the event there was that direct, really a conflict developed, then those members would recuse themselves and the alternates and the other members would decide the case who are not conflicted.
Your Honor, the only thing I would add to the discussion is you're not just talking about whether there's a direct or indirect, a direct conflict of interest. You're talking about the compatibility of offices. And we've written opinions that being a member of the school board is not an incompatible office with being a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Could there be a situation where the person sitting on the Zoning Board of Appeals would have an interest other than that as a member of the board that's different, where they'd have to recuse themselves? That's possible, but it does not necessitate them not being able to serve based upon their sitting as a school board member as well as a zoning board member. A lot of the the items that the zoning board deals with are use variances and dimensional variance requests in terms of side yard setbacks, front and rear yard setbacks, things of that nature, as well as making certain recommendations to council regarding rezoning type issues.
Second part to my question is, are any of these district board members who are also on this board, are they under investigation of any kind? Is there a concern for
Your Honor.
that?
Mr. Corbett?
I don't really know how to answer that question, because if I knew, whether a member of this council or a member of that zoning board were under investigation, I probably couldn't say anything anyway. But I'm not aware of any, personally, I know about politics in the area, but other than politics, I'm not aware of any slur on these folks.
Could you describe that politics you're speaking of to just clarify what you mean by that?
Oh, they've had, come on, Kim. Now, you know perfectly, pardon me, Councilwoman,
Okay.
I'm sorry. You know perfectly well that it's been tough politics. They had a very bitter fight last fall, and they have over the years, people getting after each other, and hopefully these things out. But other than that kind of back and forth, that was my point.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I do need clarifying language, because we are talking about members that are going to be a part of the city. And if you're saying that there are politics or concerns that are going online, I may know what you're talking about, but we're talking to, tonight, we're talking to close to 100 residents, and later on, there'll be thousands of people who view this who will be looking, for that concern. So if you could elaborate on what you mean by that, so our
Mr. Corbett,
residents are aware.
Mr. Corbett, I think, okay, thank you. Okay, so Councilwoman Clark, are you aware of, or maybe I guess Mrs. Marsh, have the background checks been done on everyone who's made an application for any of the boards this evening? You're on mute. You're on mute. Or perhaps the clerk could answer that. Have background checks been?
Yes, Mayor.
They have, okay. And everyone who has applied for any of our boards has passed their background checks?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, if someone were to find out after these appointments that a member of any board would no longer pass a background check, then they would let the clerk know, or they would let somebody know, and we would let the clerk know, and then that person would be removed?
I would have to double check with the city clerk when she comes back, Mayor, on that one.
Okay.
Your Honor.
But at this point in time, everyone has passed a background check.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Your Honor.
I'm going to go with Mr. Corbett at this one.
Oh, I just was going to say it. If somebody did become, I don't think we've had it happen, but there was an investigation or something, then the council could remove an office holder for cause, if that was your question.
Well, my question was specifically the background check, and maybe it's a question of what the background check entails. I believe it's some kind of a criminal record. I don't know if being under investigation necessarily.
Your Honor, the city wouldn't necessarily know if somebody was under an investigation, and it doesn't show on your report until you're actually charged or it goes through the whole court system as to actually what happens.
Okay, so then to answer Councilwoman Clark's question, are any of these members under investigation? The answer would be, I don't know. Mr. Corbett doesn't know. I don't know that anybody, I mean, perhaps Councilwoman Clark, but I'm not privy to that information if there is an investigation.
Is there a way to get that information? I think it's important before we vote to add members to, or keep members on our board who had concerns before in previous meetings, to find out whether or not, I don't know how often these background checks are done. Like maybe they're done the first time they start the meeting. And I don't know what's gone on. I also only know what's been, the politics that are being spread online. So it would all be, speculation, hearsay for me, but not to say that it's not a cause for immediate concern. And I feel like, I don't know if our law enforcement would have that information, or if there is someone who has information that they can go in depth more before we make a decision to vote these people back on this board.
So
Your
Your
Honor.
Honor, go ahead, Larry.
What I would say is that when matters are under investigation with law enforcement, it's not subject to the Freedom of Information Act. The information is not accessible and is not in the public domain unless and until charges are filed. So there's no way to access the information. And it
And
could be, the information could be relate to law enforcement that isn't our own police department also.
And Your Honor, background checks are completed every time a term expires, every time they're going to be reappointed.
Okay, so everybody who was appointed this evening or potentially appointed this evening had passed a background check. So if sometime in the last couple of years, it would have been flagged. And it wouldn't have been provided to council. What would have happened to that application? Someone applies, the background check, they fail. Council ever see that application, or does it come with a note saying this person failed the background check?
Well, we haven't happened to my knowledge, but I wouldn't put it on a council agenda for appointments if they failed their background check. I would imagine I would put it in the informationals to you earlier in the week.
Okay, so everybody who we considered this evening has passed a background check recently.
Yes, Mayor.
All right.
Can you
Thank you.
clarify recently again? I'm sorry, because I didn't hear if it was in the past couple of years or right before this meeting just now.
It's whenever the application was received, Councilwoman, that a background check is done, whether they're being reappointed or if they're a new application.
Thank you. Thank you.
That help? Okay.
Your Honor,
Right. Mr. Soltis?
can I weigh in on this? I agree with Councilman Corbett. I only know 3 out of the 5. In my opinion, Cindy Holder and Mark Kimball are upstanding citizens. And Martha Kehoe, I mean, she's a saint. She's been around for so long in the city and has done so much that I just I welcome any volunteering that she wants to do. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you. Any other discussion regarding these renewals? All right, seeing none, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Corbett,
Yes.
Robach,
No.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
No.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes. Motion carries 4-2. Thank you. That is it for our boards and commissions. Thank you to everybody who applied. If you applied and you weren't accepted, please, all of our boards and commissions, just like our council meetings, they are all public meetings. You are welcome to attend. And a lot of them have subcommittees that you can work on. You don't need to be a member of the board to work on the subcommittees. So if you applied for board and we didn't approve you this evening, don't let that deter you. Go to the meetings, talk to the council representatives, talk to the other members on the board and see what there is that you can do to help. The more people that help out, the better it is. It's great for the community. So thank you, everyone, for applying. Up next, we have the minutes from the regular city council meeting. There was one typo that I did find in this. I'm not sure if I should mention this now or if I should do that during discussion. Mr. Sherman?
Your Honor, you can mention it once there's a motion and support on the floor to approve the minutes.
All right, thank you. So what is the wish of council?
Your Honor.
Mr. Corbett?
I move to approve the minutes for the moment as printed.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Your Honor.
Counselor Rohrbach?
I support.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. I will start the discussion. In my closing comment last time, I made reference to the law firm of Little and Dubin, and it was a typo. It should have been, it was spelled Little, and it should have been spelled Liddle. So I just want to have that on the record. I did notify the clerk of that, and so it's a typo, and that will be changed as the meetings get, however that works, but that typo has been caught and changed. So outside of that, I'm fine with the minutes unless somebody else has something.
Should I amend the motion, Your Honor,
Mr.
to
Sherman?
incorporate your
Well,
change?
Your Honor, it would be appropriate for the maker of the motion and support to change the motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, Mr. Corbett?
I would be honored, ma'am.
Thank you. Counselor Rohrbach, thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right, clerk, can you please take a roll call vote for the amended minutes?
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Soltis,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Corbett,
Yes.
and Grafstein.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you. All right, that is it for the regular meeting. So I now invite closing comments, starting with Councilman Corbett.
Only just one item. I just actually requested the city. I know the vaccines are becoming slowly more and more readily available to our residents. So I was wondering if maybe when it becomes locally available, if the city could make it a point to post on the website somewhere. I know there's limited territory on the website, but to put when and where the locations are. Right now, a link that's valuable is the Oakland and the Oakland vaccine. I forget, it's Get in Line or something. I forget what the euphemism is, but it's available. And perhaps some space could be used for that. Right now, it's I really don't know how they're telling people. I got my notice in an email from Beaumont, but that's one of the advantages, I suppose, of being over 65. But can't think of many actually, but that's one. So hopefully they'll be getting the vaccinations out more often. So thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Mr. Corbett. Councilman Bliss?
Yes, Your Honor, a few things tonight. First and foremost, really want to echo the sentiment of encouraging people to apply for our boards and commissions. Of the boards that we talked about and had these discussions on, I think 5 of them still have open seats. And so, you know, if you're sitting and you're watching this, whether you're the 100 or so that Councilwoman Clark had mentioned we're watching live, or anybody who's going to watch afterwards, I'd encourage you, if you're hearing this discussion or you heard about a board and maybe you didn't even know that that's what that board did, please fill out an application, you know, get your name into consideration. In instances where, you know, we've got all of these open boards, but not enough people to fill them. It really makes it difficult for our city boards to run and operate as they should. And so please apply. And if your board you love doesn't have an opening right now, it likely will in the future. So apply, get that application in, have it there and pending, and make sure to use the application to talk about your experience, your expertise, your passion for what what board you're trying to join, and that'll really help us as we try to find the best fits, you know, in this appointment process, which goes on way longer than, you know, you at home probably think that it should, but also note that this is way less than it used to be. So progress. Second thing I want to talk about is the Juneteenth event. Really excited that we're able to bring more events into the city. I know that the Arts Board and ECC and Crime Commission before that, the Library Board have all been able to do some really great events in their history. I'm proud to have been a part of many of them, and it's a great opportunity when you have a board that's passionate about bringing people together to allow them to do that, particularly when there's no cost to the city, when the board themselves is fundraising and staffing. I'm very, very supportive of anything that's going to bring people together. That I don't know, any type of community event that is there for the community, is open to all, and is fun and enjoyable for residents of all ages, I think is an awesome thing. And I'm really excited for that. Which is, I think, a good segue for me. We just announced with Trail Tunes that this year's Trail Tunes is going to be on August 7th. So, when I was young, we used to have multiple festivals in the park here. And that was one of my favorite things growing up here. You had 3 different festivals in the park in the summer. And even before that, there was a fair over Memorial Day that the community group, the JCs, put on. And so it was really awesome to bring everybody together, and you had so much community support and outpouring. So many people, that was their favorite thing to do in the summer, and through budget cuts, all of those things have kind of been stripped away, and I'm so happy that we're able to bring a version of that back with the Arts Board and the Trail Tunes Festival, being able to do that in the summer, effectively replacing what used to be there with something new and exciting. I'm really stoked about that. And honestly, I think what people are most excited about is that this year's festival will be warm. That was the number one critique that everybody had at the last Trail Tunes, was that it was cold, and that hindered people's desire to want to stay a long time. And so I'm really excited that we're able to do that on a summer evening. We've already got a handful of bands that have put in to be a part of it. And I expect that number to significantly increase over the next couple of weeks. So if you're watching this and you either play an instrument, you're a part of a band, you're a musician of any style at all, I'd encourage you to apply. And if you know anybody that is, please fill out the form. It's on the Arts Board Facebook page. It'll be on the city website. Definitely leverage that form to put yourself into the running to be a featured performer at this year's festival. And secondly, this year we're also doing small vendors. So if you run a small business, if you make crafts, you can be a part of the festival this year too. And feel free to email or message me if you'd like any more details on that or sponsorships. But all in all, I think it was a really good night. It was a lot of fun. Longer again than I think most of the people watching this wanted, but we got a lot done, and I'm really proud of the discussion and collaboration that we've had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss. Councilor Rohrbach.
All right, so I had two thoughts while Mr. Bliss was talking. One was the Trail Tunes. You said it's going to be warm, but it's Michigan, so no matter when it is, it could be 40 degrees. So don't get anybody's hopes up. Secondly, my son has started making beatboxing videos, so maybe he can just have a place in the trail. Anyway, but I'm looking forward to that because it's going to be a fun event. It was great last year, and it will be great again. And I'm going to say this about the Trail Tunes, about all these other these events and things that happen. The collaboration that is available to the many boards and commissions that are going on in the city is incredible. So if we have, we have the Arts Board, we've got the Parks Board, we've got the HREC, we've got the ECC, we've got all these different boards that have passionate people on them that want to do amazing things. And just because it is an event that is hosted by the Arts Board, Trail Tunes, doesn't mean only the Arts Board people can participate, right? So I just want to encourage anybody who is on any board or commission, anybody who's anybody and anywhere in the city, please volunteer and help out. I also really hope and encourage any of our council reps on other boards to take the opportunity to talk to your board and encourage them to come up with a way to collaborate with these other events. For instance, we do have Juneteenth coming up now. I am so thrilled about that. And I just know that there are going to be ways that, you know, the ECC and the Parks Board, that we can come together and bring some sort of collaboration and help to planning and implementation. I know at Trail Tunes last year, like the Madison, who is it, the PTA, they came out and they did giant like bowling ball games and stuff like that. So cool stuff. And I really hope that we can encourage that as much as possible to find the synergy with our boards, to find the way to work together. I want to say with the Environmental Citizens Committee, we've been really hard at work lately with a lot of different projects and programs that have, you know, when the weather turns nice, this is the time that we're going to be able to start putting things in the ground. But right now we're putting things into the plans. So the ECC has been doing a ton of work to get ready for the spring and summer. The Kaboom grant, we're talking about putting in rain gardens, native plants, some really beautiful things that are going to go in right there by the public, our library. It's going to be beautiful, and it will really increase the ability for people to come enjoy the library outside. You know, it's something that we haven't had for, besides a picnic table outside, there hasn't been much available. So this will be a very nice addition to our city, our city facilities. And we'll be looking for volunteers when it comes time to actually implement that. So I want to encourage everybody to keep an eye out for that as the plans firm up. We're also, I think the seed library is about to come back to the library, you know, pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that, everybody. At our library, you can get free seeds to plant things in your own gardens. And then one thing that I'm super excited about is the Arbor Day Foundation. We are now a Tree City USA. Madison Heights is a Tree City USA. I was like pie in the sky for me. I was so excited when we finally got there, because I've just been hoping for this for a long time. Along with that, we also got a grant for over $9,000 that's going to help pay for about 50 trees in the end. I think there's several different funding sources, but I think that one pays for about 50 trees, and to plant them in our neighborhoods. So we're planning a big tree planting extravaganza in the south end of the city. There's about 6 blocks that we've identified for this first round that will get, you know, we're going to try and space them out the purpose is to repopulate the urban trees canopy in our neighborhoods. That's what we want to be able to do to help, and it's going to take bit by bit. It's not going to be, not everybody's going to get the tree that they want right now, but we are going to take our time. We're going to do it right, and we are going to re-canopy the city with the right tree in the right place, because not all trees should go in every place. So I'm super excited about that. And so again, there will be volunteer opportunities for all of these things. I encourage our public to really keep an eye out for that and get involved any way they can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Rohrbach. Mr. Sherman, anything from the attorney's office this evening?
Nothing further to add, Your Honor, other than wishing you all a good week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. City Manager Marsh, anything from you?
Nothing tonight. No.
Thank you. Acting Clerk, anything from the Clerk's office?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Clark?
Yes, I have just a couple of things. First, Melissa, I'm so impressed with you and your ability to act swift, to do math on the fly and create motion language, like it without skipping a beat, so that we can vote on something as very important as giving money to Haven. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for wearing all the hats that you wear and putting in all the hard work that you do. I'm so impressed with your dedication to your job and to our residents here in the city. Emily, I'm also super proud of you. You got the tree thing in, and it's like taken off like wildfire, and people are volunteering. You've done so many beautiful things all over the city. Thank you so much. Mr. Corbett, thank you for talking about the vaccine resources. I've seen a lot of mayors and a lot of towns coming out and open and really speaking about where people can find these and speaking about it often so that our communities know how to reach these, because I don't know how to reach these without like having to go and search exhaustively on these websites that bury all the information. So thank you for talking about that. I think, you know, our city manager has a lot on her plate, and I know that we're down some resources. So maybe that's something that the mayor could take on and start putting out more resources, especially as we get closer, you know, further down the list to people who are eligible for it. Also, Vaughn Dearden brought in talking about the crosswalks on 13 Mile, and I know Elizabeth Blumenberg has also spoke greatly on different things we can do to draw attention to these pathways. We're developing a downtown area, and we've recently been nominated like one of the most walkable cities, and yet we have intersections on 10, 11, 12 and 13 Mile Road that we see a lot of accidents and we see a lot of pedestrians being hit by cars, and we can't really promote walking in the city when we have areas in the city that make it so dangerous to walk, especially areas that we're currently working on developing to make this a downtown area. So I've got to get with these guys and say that we definitely need to do something, and there are cheap ways to do that, like paint a mural on the crosswalk to just make it stand out more, or do what like Royal Oak does and put pedestrian stop signs that are just plastic signs out in the median and make it easier for pedestrians to walk on these roads where people speed across them all day long. So I can get behind that, and if any other member of council can get behind maybe drawing up a project to do the bare minimum to draw attention to these areas to make our residents more safe, I'm down for it. And we're coming up a year on the shutdown, and speaking of Elizabeth Blumenberg, she actually contacted us a couple weeks before the shutdown, was just like, what is the city going to do? Like, what are we doing to prepare? Which enacted our city manager to start pulling together resources and getting them out. And it was maybe one of the more progressive moves that we saw happen in our city government. And since then, we've seen a lot of disparity gaps being advocated for. So we're seeing the food pantries coming out and they're providing food to the residents. There's now a Madison Heights mutual aid getting started to help provide funding to help our residents in need. There's clothing drives. The HREC is helping to advise policies that create inequities for our residents. And we're learning now just how urgent and how much these issues need to be addressed just right here in our own city government. And so I'm so excited and so proud for these leaders who are coming out to make sure that we're addressing all of our residents' concerns and making our city accessible and making it more equitable for all of our residents, and speaking out against hate and providing resources to people who are scared. I couldn't be more proud of our progressive city right now. I know they call it City of Progress for a reason. I just am so proud, and I'm beaming for my city tonight, and I'm excited to be a part of this team, and that's all I got for tonight.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Clark. Mayor Pro Tem Soltis.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to add that, you know, during this pandemic, I know everyone's getting COVID tired out, but I want to do a little part. So if there's, especially seniors, veterans, people can't afford it, you know, I'll try to help out with providing masks. You know, it's not going to be an N95s, of course, but at least it'll be a mask that if they don't have any. So please reach out to me, via email or phone number, 248-219-6381. And I'll try to help you out as much as I can in terms of providing masks. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Soltis. All right, wow, we have been doing our meetings in about an hour, and so this one is going a bit longer, but I'm not going to hopefully talk for too long. So I do appreciate everyone who came out to talk today and to voice your concerns, and for the time that council took with the boards and the commissions, the appointments. That's always takes a long time. It took a bit longer now that we're doing it on Zoom, and we had to roll call everything, but I do appreciate everyone who did that and who did apply. Couple things I want to touch on
State of the Cities is going to be virtual this year. It is going to be a week from Thursday. It is March 4th. So we've got that. I don't know if that's on the website, but I think social media is putting out a link on that. So we've got that coming up where it's basically, if you've never been to the State of the City, it's basically a review of 2020, little bit of looking forward, but it's mainly a review of the year that was, and 2020 was definitely a year to remember. Last week, I think just after we had our council meeting, there was a news story that our SIU and the county and some neighboring cities, they were able to break up a human trafficking ring. So I just want to give a lot of thanks to all the law enforcement officers who were involved in that. It was a collaborative effort, and really appreciate all of that. So I want to make note that when I checked with the police last week, the third suspect was still out there. So any information that you have about him, please contact the police, let them know anything that we can do to help get these criminals off the street. At the end of, or at the beginning of our last meeting, we had a couple of people from the HREC who came to speak about, there's some concerns with the group and a request for council to come to the meetings. And so I said that at the closing comments that I was going to contact the members. And so I did. I contacted, there are 5 members and 2 alternates, and I was able to speak to 6 people. There was one person I wasn't able to get in contact with, but I did reach out to everybody, and everybody joined for basically the same reasons. Everybody who joined, they were excited to be on the board. They want to make sure that everyone in the city feels included and feels safe. And there just seemed to be, I don't know, I guess there seemed to be a concern about communications. Councilwoman Clark made a comment this evening that sounds like there were some other concerns about communications. And I think that it's a new group and they're still sort of feeling their way. And so I think that the Juneteenth is a great idea. And I know that it was Mrs. Marsh and I are talking to different people. We're looking for sponsorship for a variety of all the events that we do, the traditional ones that we've done in the past, the new ones like Trail Tunes, and then other new events that are coming up. And I know Juneteenth was on that list, or was on that list a couple of weeks ago. So I think that there is a little bit of disconnect with communication, and I don't know how much of that is because we're doing this, it's all Zoom. I feel like I spend half the meeting here going like this, looking to see who's talking and, trying to identify. It's different. Humans are social people. We're used to being in person with people. So it's a completely different way of interacting, and it's coming up on a year. So I think that might be just a combination of things, just sort of leading to those communication issues. But I think that they're being worked out. I think, I think that there's a lot that it sounds like the committee is working on. I think there's a lot of good things that are being done. And so I look forward to see what else is being done. But there was one concern that I had, and that was that when we set up this board, it was going to be a combination of the Multicultural Board and the Crime Commission, but no one really mentioned the Crime Commission component of it. And after the meeting that we had last week, I had a few people who reached out and said, I know that the HREC is meeting, they're talking about different things, but they didn't feel, they hadn't heard anything Crime Commission related. And then we had like I said, we had this human trafficking bus. And I think it's really important that we do have a group that focuses on crime. So I would like to look at reinstating the Crime Commission and resetting that up as a board. I do not want to get rid of the HREC. I think that it is vital. We do need to have something. I know that when we had the Multicultural Board, they had 1 or 2 meetings, and whatever happened, it didn't progress. So I don't want to see that happen to this board. I want to make sure that this board is getting the support that they need so that they can fulfill the mandate that was given to them by council. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands, you know, what it is that they're doing. I know Councilwoman Clark said that she felt that there was resistance, and I think that might just be part of an education and not quite understanding what it is that the board is doing or that the board is supposed to be doing. So again, back to the whole communication, the communication issues. So I do want to somehow have council, I don't know, work with the board, or I don't know exactly how we can do this, so just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, understanding what it is that that the board is working on. I want to say to a couple of members who spoke today and shared some really personal stories that you know, that thank you for sharing. Thank you to council for approving the change with Haven. I wish we could give more. There are so many good programs out there, but Haven deals with women and children, I guess, for the most part, at the worst point in their life. So anything we can do to help them. And again, this is why I want to reinstate the Crime Commission, because human trafficking, domestic abuse, I mean, these are just, no one should ever have to go through that. And I don't want to be helping victims. I want to be stopping victims. I want there to be 0 victims. So I want to do what we can to prevent the crime from happening in the first place. You know, the Crime Commission, when I was on the Crime Commission, we worked on reinstating the SIU and we worked on the hotel ordinance, and I want to have a Crime Commission that's doing that. So anyways, that's something that that I want to look at doing. So I'm hoping that we're going to have that on the agenda for the next meeting, reinstating it. And then the HREC can work on the programs that they are working on to help people who are marginalized and to help everybody feel included, and so that everybody is welcoming. And I can't remember now who said it. I think it was Councillor Rohrbach said something along the lines of, you know, just because the Arts Board is doing something doesn't mean other people can't be involved. And when the Arts Board had the Trail Tunes last year, the ECC, you know, jumped in, and they had a plant sale, and the Friends of the Library had a book sale. And I think the more collaboration that we can do between the different boards, you know, I don't know how many people would have gone to just the book sale or just the plant sale, but people were there for Trail Tunes, so they stopped off. So I think the more collaboration we can do, it also gets you knowing other people and getting to know our neighbors in the community. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who helped out in some way with shoveling last week. I was number 4 when the city put out their map. I was number 4. So we got plowed out at the end of the day, and we still have snow and slush and potentially ice there. So I want to shout out to my neighbors who cleared the drains on my street. So I went down to the corner and I cleared those drains. If you have drains that are still covered, please uncover them so that they don't get iced over and so that everything can leave. But really appreciate everything that that DPS did as well. And that is it for the evening. The time is 9:51. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and have a good night.